All right, guys. Today on the podcast, we have Kris Bachman, who was introduced to me by Jeff Harris, who's been a previous guest on a podcast. Also came on and I think did the first or one of the first Lions Guide lectures. But I'm excited to have Kris on a podcast today, really to talk about being a woman high performer and represent the high performance ladies community. I think the closest I've had to that, I've had great ladies on. Um, and one of which was my wife, who we talked about the 4x4x48 challenge. But I know men don't have this market cornered, despite what YouTube and the rest of the internet might lead you to believe. So excited to get Kris on here to talk about leading a high performance lifestyle. And Kris, welcome to the show. Tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on today. Feel honored to be called a high performer, but it is definitely a lifestyle that I lead. I grew up in suburbs of in Wisconsin. I was a total tomboy. Loved fishing with my dad. I loved going up with him to sighting guns. I got into sports just because I was playing football with the boys, and really decided I was going to get into softball and basketball because those are the sports that my dad played. So, it was just us playing hoops after dinner or throwing a ball around. I was pretty much the son that he never had. and then decided to pursue running in my senior year of high school, which proved to be my best sport of all, just as a cross country athlete, and then also a distance runner for our track team. I did get asked to run for a D3 school, and I turned it down. I was nervous, being such a new runner, new to the sport, that I wouldn't be able to live up to their expectations. I was also going into a very competitive market, or not market, but into a competitive program for the physician assistant program, and I needed to have a 4.0 pretty much to get in. And so I was nervous that I wouldn't be able to keep up with the demands of the athletics as well as my academics. I was one of those kids that was kind of good at everything. Definitely always wanted to be better or the best if I could be. I definitely had to work at everything, though. It did not come easy to me, but I didn't mind the work.
Mm.
And I didn't realize that character that I had until much later in life. And it has definitely been a great quality to have. Sometimes works against me in some ways, but it's definitely got me to where I am today. I went on to pursue a nursing career. Then I switched majors, and from the from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and started a career in the neurosurgical intensive care. And when all of my friends were deciding that they wanted to go into OB or pediatrics, I was like, I'm going into Neuro ICU, and they looked at me like I was crazy.
And were you
But I
moving around for all this? Like, did you go away
love
for school or anything like
No,
that?
it was all very local. I
Yeah.
have not left. And there was a local hospital that I had an internship with. They paid for part of my tuition, so it all just kind of fell into place very, very early on. I got great mentorship while I was there as an intern. I got my foot in the door right away. So it just kind of catapulted my career in nursing right away. Neuro ICU, as you can imagine, is intense, and I loved every second of it. I still miss it to this day. It's chaos, but it definitely takes a team effort to care for these people that are often have just had brain surgery, that have had life debilitating strokes. I mean, you're also dealing with a lot of families that are in crisis mode. So I learned a lot very early on about dealing with people and being as compassionate as possible, but still
Mm.
kind of being hyper focused on what the task was at hand. Um, from there, I left that job briefly to go pursue a career with the Wisconsin Donor Network. And that career was the most challenging career I think I ever could have imagined. My job was to basically go to a hospital where someone had a major injury that potentially was going to end their life. They were thinking that maybe that person would be considered what's called brain dead, and we would have the difficult conversation with them about if their family member wished to donate their organs. And there's a lot of misconception about what that means and what the process entails. And so we were doing a lot of education at the time. Um, and then once, if they consented, then it was the time clock started, and we were under very strict time guidelines to place all of these organs. Every organ has a different time period that needs to be placed. And so we were literally making phone calls, going down a list from the most urgent, and telling them, like, hey, I have, for example, a male. He's 24 years old. He's 6'2". He's 180 pounds. This is his blood type. And he's, a very healthy individual, no high risk behaviors. Are you interested? And they would say yes or no, depending on their recipient that they had in mind. And so
your job was to basically inventory what quality organs you could get out to folks in need, basically.
yeah, so it was doing the workup that was needed for every organ to see if it was suitable for transplant.
Mm,
If someone was in a car accident per se, like maybe they had a liver laceration, so their liver, may not be suitable for that candidate or something. So we would do all the work needed for suitability and any additional testing to make sure that that organ is, if making sure like the donor didn't have HIV, didn't have hepatitis, all of these other blood tests required. We wanted to make sure that, there was not some high risk behavior that maybe no one knew about, so we were doing
mm,
very thorough body assessments. There was a lot that went it or was involved in this process, and then working also with the staff, because we're coming into their work environment and kind of taking over, and so
sure.
you had to develop a very quick rapport with everyone, because not everyone has the same view about organ donation that we did. We understood the good that we were doing, but even healthcare professionals didn't understand what we were trying to accomplish. We got called all kinds of names. The vultures were coming in. I mean,
Mm.
it was like, okay, really?
And was that a
um,
bit of a conflict from like a lost soul, so to speak, and their desire to get on to the next person in need? So did they not want to get kind of consumed in this part of what you were asking? Or like what was the conflict, I guess, with those
Yeah,
guys?
I think it was more of just a misunderstanding of what we were trying to accomplish.
Mm,
Like, we're not, I mean, we were following very strict guidelines that are set, we're not some black market organization that's just poaching organs. Like,
sure.
it was nothing like that. But it was the ignorance on the other time. They didn't take the time to learn about what we were trying to accomplish. And if they knew that, maybe this heart was going to a mother that had developed some kind of viral infection that destroyed her heart and gave her myocarditis,
Mm,
like, those are the people that we're doing this for. And so it was just, not only educating families, but educating the staff of what we were trying to accomplish. And also, we are just trying to fulfill someone's last wish. So if we look at their driver's license and they check the box that they wanted to be an organ donor, well, we want to fulfill that wish for them.
yeah.
And so, and some people just have the idea, like, I'm dead. I don't need these organs. So why not pass them on to and help, potentially 7 to 8 other people continue to live on in their life and give them a second chance at life. And that's how I looked at it.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some people that will never agree with me, and that's okay. Like, I understand and appreciate the difference in opinion, but this was my job,
Yeah.
and I did it to the best of my abilities. Now, it was very high stress. Like I said, I would work sometimes 24-hour shifts straight. I would travel to different hospitals across the state. And so it just got to be very wearing. It was dealing with death every single day.
Mm,
So that got to be very depressing. I think it was probably at one of the lowest points in my life. During that time, I didn't know how to deal with a lot of the situations that I saw on a daily basis. I mean, it was, PTS every day, like just seeing car accidents, seeing these horrific situations and not knowing how to cope with them.
Mm.
And you just go on and do it again the next day. And so that was hard. And I, ended up going back to the neuro intensive care unit after that for, just what I think my true love originally was. And then from there, I went back and got my master's in nursing and became a nurse practitioner, and then started having a family. And that kind of changed everything. My middle son was born a few weeks premature, and so he was in the NICU for about 10 days, and that was rather challenging, knowing everything that I already knew about intensive care. I knew too much almost.
Mm.
So seeing your child there is so difficult. But I made the decision. My husband and I made the decision that I could stay home with them and just raise them the way that we want them to be raised. And so I was willing to give up my career to do that for them, because it was important to me to do that.
And we talked a little bit about that in the pre-show a little bit. We tried not to have the show before the show, but we got into it a little bit, like, which is, what I was excited about having you on is because, just that, right? Like like my passion is in high performance, that's holistic, right? Like it's not just
Mhm.
athletics, but it's nutrition, mindset, well, like just it's all of the above, right? And what I'm passionate about is those folks that are in high demand roles. And the truth of the matter is, I totally get it. I've seen my wife of 22 years. We've been together since high school, just managing our household of 3 kids and sports and trying to keep me straight and all the things that we have going on. It's a hard job. I think that stigma of, oh, she doesn't have to work. She just gets to stay home and take care of the kids. Like that's, man, like if you're anybody that's had kids and had to stay home and manage them for a day,
Yeah.
it's not that, man. It's a lot of work. So I totally appreciate that, and I feel like, but like we were saying, like I was excited about just talking to you from that high performance mindset, because I think you've got to have that high performance mindset to, again, just like any other highly demanding role, like you got to have that mindset of a high performer to be able to honorably, deal with those challenges and live up to the expectations and meet the demand. So I'll let you run with that one for a bit.
Yeah, no, thank you. It is, it's a thankless job at times, and I'm kind of the manager of chaos, as
Yeah.
I like to say. I ended up having one more child after my middle child was born, so three total in 6 years, and whew, it's crazy. But honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love that they're close together in age. My husband is also an entrepreneur. So being, we decided that we both couldn't have two very, very high stressful jobs.
Hmm.
And not knowing when each person would be able to come home at night was very stressful for me. Like, it just doesn't seem fair to our kids. And I
Yeah.
understand that not everyone, can do what I did. And I'm very, very grateful for that. But it's hard work. It is the hardest job that I've ever had. It's the one that I definitely um feel like I fail at all the time, but I'm willing to learn from those mistakes. I mean, those children mean the world to me, and I just want to give them, they're my number one every single day, and I try my best to provide for them, the best that I can.
So what's the ages of your kids?
10, 8, and 6.
Oh, right on. It's cool. So yeah, we're there. We're 13, 9, and 7. So kind of in the same boat playing zone, with the kids. There I got to dig this report up, but there was a report I fell across in the rabbit hole of the internet years ago that said like the stress factor of the number of kids in the house, there was like a
Mhm.
bell curve to it. And 3 was like the most stressful amount to have in the house.
Really?
And there were some reasons for it, but ultimately, like, if you've got 2, right, it's just man on
Yes.
man. If you have 4, like, they kind of partner up and they entertain each other. But if it's 3, like, no one's satisfied. It was an interesting read. So originally, my wife just wanted to have 2,
Mhm.
and I was like, I want to have 4. I had no reason, and obviously, I'm not having the baby, so easy for me to say, right? But so I had submitted to only having 2, and then like clockwork, once my daughter, who's our mentor child, turned 1, Jody was kind of like, I think I could do one more. And I'm like, well, we can't just stop at one more. We got to go for the full 4. Right? And then I start citing this
Right.
article again. I was like, we can't stop at 3. But but we stopped at 3, and boy, we are in it. We got a circus, man.
I
But
know, I think when they go off to school in the morning, like, I come in, I walk them to the bus and I come back in and it's that big sigh of like, I made it. Like, I did
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And it's the same thing at night when they all go to bed. It's like, oh, we got through this one. They definitely have some of my qualities, good and bad. Very high energy kids, which I love. And I'm definitely not a helicopter parent. I want my kids to explore. I want them to make mistakes. I want them to learn from their mistakes. I want them to be independent. I want them to, make good decisions, but be faced with decisions, not just having their parents do that all the time. So it's hard sometimes. It's hard to watch them fail,
What do you think
make
influences
mistakes.
you there? Like, what makes you not want to be the helicopter mom?
This is gonna sound terrible, but I'm trying to be kind of like the exact opposite of how I was raised. My mom, and I love her dearly, but she's a very anxious person. She was always hovering, always telling us, like, don't cross the street, you're gonna get hit by a car, don't go down the street, you're gonna get abducted. I mean, all of the fears, right? And I was like, if you tell me not to do something, I'm gonna kind of do I'm gonna do the
Mhm.
exact opposite. So I guess I just come from that spot that I never liked being hovered over, and I never liked someone always telling me no. If you told me no, I was going to do the opposite. I wanted to do and see the world, explore. I wanted to do it all. And so I want to give that to my children too, because I think this world is it's too wonderful of a place, and there's so much to see and so much to learn, and I don't want to hold them back from experiencing that.
Yeah, there's a really good book. Uh, it's called "The Calling of the American Mind." Have you ever heard of that book?
Mm-mm. No, I have not.
It talks a lot about that, in like how we've evolved since the early '80s.
Hmm.
Really, when what was it, John Walsh, the guy that had that show, America's Most Wanted, when his son, he got
Yeah.
famous because his son was abducted or whatever.
Yep.
And that was a pivot point to that fear factor of how
Yes.
American parents raised their kids, because then all of a sudden it was so mainstream that the kids were going to get abducted if they were playing in the neighborhood. And it's an
Yeah.
interesting book about how that was a little bit of the starting point to this, really helicopter parenting, like over cautious, and
Yeah.
really coddling to a very low statistical probability of something
Sure.
happening. And then that ultimately leads to kids just, and it's a really good book because it gets into like what we're seeing a lot of today as these kids become adults and like have, 20-year-old temper tantrums because they're not getting their way on campus or in policy or whatever. um it's interesting. It's a neat read to kind of, at least for me, it was always like, why, man, why are these kids acting like this? And it tells you exactly why they're acting like this. And it's got a lot to do with them just not learning how to uh, tolerate difficulties at younger ages. And then when they get older, they have to contend with difficulties as an adult, but they're just not, they haven't been conditioned to it because their parents protected them from everything.
Right,
It,
right, that's fascinating.
yeah, I mean, you think about it, like parents today, it seems, not all of them, but I've got folks in the family that are teachers and stuff, and they're like, man, I've got parents calling, cussing me out because their kid came home with a B on the test. And it's like, well, what are you talking to me about? Like, why aren't you talking to your kid? Like, they're the one that got the
Yeah.
B, it's everyone else's fault except for the kids. And, the kids
I
don't
feel like
think
I
they can
have
do
the
any wrong.
complete opposite, like, mindset when it comes to that. Like, when, there's a conflict between a teacher and one of my children, I'm like, I always go to my child first, like, well, what did you do? Like,
Yeah.
I don't believe it's the teacher's fault. But I also, with my time, I volunteer at the school. I want
Mm,
the school to know who I am. They know who I am. I'm never going to tell them how to do their job, but I'm going to be in the lunchroom. I'm going to be on the playground. I know their teachers by first name. I have their phone numbers. They contact me if there's a problem, and we settle it that way. And
mm.
I love it that way. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a small school, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like you used that word earlier, like rapport. I think it's important to build rapport in all those types of relationships so that you can have the necessary communication to progress through issues, right? Like when there's an
Mhm.
issue with a child and their grades or behavior or whatever, like you want to be able to have that like two-way open conversation with you know, between two adults, right? Like that are, for that school year or whatever, like somewhat like emotionally invested in mutual success, right? Like you got to know like the teacher's dealing with a tough job, and she's got to want to see your kids succeed. So it's good that that's also to like have rapport to just kind of be involved and, hopefully find the win-win.
Yeah, it's definitely a win. And I have a very high energy 10-year-old boy. He likes to get in trouble, but his teacher's been amazing though, just to know how to handle him appropriately. I do have to remind him though, I'm like, when you act up in class, you're taking her time and attention away from all the rest of your classmates, and you always have to remember that. And you just got to put it in perspective that way sometimes for them, I think. And then they might flip a little switch. It seems to work for us right now.
Yeah. So, you know, amongst all this, you've done some cool stuff like athletically, like, and you mentioned like running in high school. Have you always been kind of this high performance mindset, or did you kind of hit different transitions points that kind of,
I was always, I continued running through college just for fun, just because I loved doing it, but never considered myself a high performer. Like I said, I was always just an athlete. I ran a lot of half marathons. That seemed to be a good distance that I could balance, having small children and still doing that amount of training. Um, I ran actually my first marathon before I had kids, and swore I would never do it again. I hated it. I hit the wall at mile 20, just like everyone tells you you're going to do that you
yeah.
think isn't going to happen to you. And then it does. And you're like, cussing the 6 miles to the finish line. And I'm like, I'm never going to do that again, ever. Like that was horrible. And
What
then
made you do it in the first place?
I think I had friends that were really involved in the Ironman community, and so I'm
Mm,
like, well, they kind of pressured me into it. I'm like, okay. I think they maybe even signed me up for it before I even knew. I'm like, well, I can do it. I'm an athlete. Like I can run a marathon. And I followed one of those online programs and kind of, did speed work and kind of did, I just half-assed everything. Not really. I mean, I did it, but I didn't understand what training really meant.
mm,
And I thought I could just get by with my athletic ability, and then I realized very quickly. And the other thing that was kind of crazy about this is that I thought that my, athletic ability would get me to Boston. Like that
mm,
was always the goal from a very early age, and I don't know where that even came from, but I always wanted to run the Boston Marathon. And I'm like, I can do this. And then when I didn't qualify, I was like, well, this is going to be really hard. Like, so I think that always just sat in the back of my brain that like maybe one day we'll get back to there. Maybe when I'm 40, I'll run a marathon again, and maybe it'll be easier then. I don't know. So I took time off of doing marathons, did half marathons, and then set a goal for myself. I wanted to break 130.
mm.
And when I did that, I'm like, okay, time to move on to the next goal. And I'm like, well, maybe it's time to revisit the marathon again. And at this time, my youngest was getting to be not so dependent on me. I'm like, I think I can invest in training again. And so I got a better plan this time and decided I was going to follow it more strictly, and ended up qualifying for Boston twice that year. So my spring marathon and my fall marathon got me qualification times, and I ended up running Boston in the spring and was injured. And I didn't want to admit to anyone that I was injured
Like
because
you injured yourself during the run or in training?
I injured myself in training
Mm.
prior, and I think I was just kind of in denial. I was also at the time fundraising for a friend who had started a nonprofit to help her son who had died from pediatric cancer, and so I was fundraising for that nonprofit, and I felt like I was going to let her down if I didn't continue on and if I didn't do the race.
Mm.
At the time, I was, posting all my training on social media, so I felt like I had all of these eyes on me. I'm like, I have to do this. I can't say no. And so I did the race, and it was a suffer fest. I'm not gonna lie, it was very painful.
Was it
Um,
the right decision to still run it in hindsight, or?
oh no, no, I shouldn't have run it at all,
Mm.
because it turns out, and I didn't find this out until months and months later, that I had a stress fracture in my sacrum,
Mm.
in my back. And after the race and during that summer, I had gone to every specialist you could think of. I went to chiropractors, I went to PT, I went to sports medicine therapists. Like, no one could tell me what was wrong and why I was still having pain and why I couldn't run for long distances. And I would get better, and then I would get worse again. And then I was in this like cycle, and then finally had an MRI that confirmed, you know, kind of the worst, but also was a relief in a way that I finally knew what was wrong.
Mm.
And so it was like a stopping point where it's like, now I can start over again. And I just needed that stopping point. I need someone to say, like, there's definitely something wrong with you, and you need to take time off.
Mm.
And so I took the time off. It was the longest 14 weeks of my life. Um,
Why? Just
and
because you
my
weren't running, or like what?
Yeah, I needed to move. I was so used to doing something every single day, and like, now you're telling me I can't exercise? At least, I mean, not in the way that I was used to exercising. And so I my orthopedist said, "Well, you can swim." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll swim then. I'm going to swim." And so I got to the gym, I got my swim cap, I got my goggles, and I knew how to swim, but I didn't know how to swim a stroke. And so I'm sitting in the car, and I had that like complete breakdown pity party in my car. I was
Mm.
just sobbing. Like, I can't do this. Like, I don't know how I'm going to make it through these 14 weeks. And what I had realized is that running like was the way that I dealt with emotion. It was the way that I dealt with so many things in my head, that I didn't know how to deal with any other way. And so now I felt like that was taken away from me, and I didn't know how to cope.
Mm.
I didn't know how to cope with the stress of being a mom. I didn't know how to, deal with anything in life, because running was my outlet.
Mm.
And so I sat there in my car. I remember this day. I remember the way my car was facing in the parking lot. It was so vivid in my brain. And I said, "Okay, that's it. You're done. You had your pity party. Now go get in the pool." And so I got in the pool and realized, wow, I'm really bad at swimming. I had a friend give me some tips and some lessons, and then I went there every single day. I
Mm.
went there, well, 6 days a week, and I just figured it out. I'm like, "I am determined to do this every single day until it becomes easier." And so I ended up going to master swim classes. I didn't belong with those people, but they pushed me, and they helped me become a better swimmer. They became great friends. Like, they were all triathletes and doing Ironman, and so they were wonderful friends and helped me kind of through this. And so I got through it. I got through those 14 weeks. It felt like, 14 years. Um, and And then I just decided, like, listen, like this time around, if I'm going to go back to doing this and training the way that I was training at a high level and high mileage, like I need a coach that really knows what they're doing. And so I found my running coach, and he has a very different style of coaching. It's intense. It's and that focuses strictly, or not strictly, but it has a large strength training component. So I strength train 5 days a week,
Mm.
and I've gotten so much stronger. And it's just, I mean, like some days I run 10-second sprints. I'm like, well, I'm a distance runner. Like, why am I running 10-second sprints? But it's all part of the plan and it all works. And so I trained my ass off from January 1st up until October to regain all the strength that I had lost, and went on to run and this is also now 2020. So it's, the pandemic and everything else that was happening. I'm like, I want to run a race, but I don't want to do a virtual race. Like that doesn't motivate me.
Mm.
So I found a race, an in-person race in Utah. And so I went and ran the Antelope Island Marathon, which is on the Great Salt Lake. It's the largest island on the Great Salt Lake. There's like wild bison roaming. It's just beautiful.
Ah, that's cool.
So it was great. I've never run out there before like that. So it was at elevation. Um, but it was a great race. I ended up taking first place female at that race, and
Mm.
it was just like redemption. I was all by myself because they didn't allow spectators. But I just remember like sobbing uncontrollably, like at the finish line, and calling my family who were in Park City, and just telling them that I did it. There's a video I took of myself, like I just didn't know what to do, so I took my camera out and I started recording. I'm like, I did it, and I've come back, and I finally felt like myself again, like I was, I could do all this again. Um, and then ran another Boston, and had a great experience, and it was just amazing, just amazing. And I'm still, continuing to train the same way with the same coach, and it's been wonderful. Like he's awesome. So
Now, is
that's
that
my
like
story.
one-on-one type of coaching, or is it like are you a part of a group or team or something? Or
It's one on one. He just kind of sends me plans, and
Mm.
it's very independent. I know what to do. I
Mm.
send him a training log at the end of the week, and then we meet up. I'm going to meet him this week to do some more like testing to see kind of where I'm at.
Mm.
So yeah, he definitely knows what he's doing. That's
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
awesome. Well, and you'll appreciate this. So there's a lady here locally, Mary Margaret Goodwin, who she retired from the Pentagon, and when she was leaving out, she told him, she says, "I'm going to go." They were like, "Mary Margaret, what are you going to do?" Because she was in her 40s. She was like, "Hey, Mary Margaret, what are you going to do with yourself?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm going to be a professional runner." And this is back in the 60s or 70s. And everyone's like, ha ha ha, like just kind of like snickered at her. And man, she went on to be sponsored by like Pepsi and did all these cool things. Like she swam like the English Channel, and she's got an awesome story about how like they didn't want a woman swim in the English Channel, and she basically, like, she was on one side, and if I remember correctly, like, and I love this story, like the local authorities were there trying to prevent her from getting like in the water or hold the boat back or whatever, and she was just like gave them the finger and like jumps in and
Yes.
starts going, and she gets to the other side, and I think they arrested her or something, but it was awesome. um, she also ran the Himalayas by herself with her dog. And she had some folks like helping her that would set up, like drop her like gear, like her camp gear off, like so long. She like ran so many miles a day. Like she's an amazing lady. But
Wow.
when I first met her and told her I was running marathons and stuff at the time, she was a big, like, she's like, well, what do you do for strength training? And I was like, oh, I'm running. What do I need to do strength training for?
Right, right.
But she was very much like, well, that's how you're going to not hurt yourself. She's like that it was like the necessity of doing strength work was preventative for injuries. Is that kind of like the philosophy of your coach as well? Or
Absolutely.
yeah.
And his main training is he's a strength and conditioning coach, and he does train Olympic hopefuls, some pros. I mean, yeah, it's worked for me. It's funny, when I'm in the gym and I'm working and I get looks and questions like, "Well, what are you training for? Like, who are you?" And I'm like, I'm a runner." And they look at me like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, this is." But I've noticed that, with the strength training, like at the end of the race, like that's when I shine. Like, that's when I can still keep going. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the endurance gets me there, but it's like the strength keeps my posture correct. It keeps me upright. It just does so many things. It keeps my glutes activated, throughout a full race. So it's all really important things like building posterior chain. Like that's all super, super important. Um, and I've been doing a lot more trail racing. Like I've passed 3 people and gained 3 places on hills, like just
Mm.
being able to power up hills. And so it's definitely been working in my favor for sure.
Now, where you're training now, do you have much hills to train on?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you do.
it's pretty hilly out here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's always a tough part. Like, you hit these races and they've just got those hills and they're the axe murderers of the course, right? um, you know.
Yeah, I did a half about 4 weeks ago, and it was just constant up and down, up and down, up and down, like big hills. The whole, I call it the black loop of death. That's the trail, about 10 minutes from my house, but it's a challenging one. But it was so fun, like just cruising up hills and cruising down, and it was just a fun race.
What does it mean? So we've talked a lot about just being a high performer, being a woman, and you highlighted some stuff that you had done, as a woman, leading different teams and other events
Mhm.
and stuff where there weren't a lot. Tell us a little bit about some of that and what that means to you, to be a high performer in these runs or events or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. So I think one of my greatest accomplishments was last year. I was helped co-found a nonprofit, and we wanted to bring together high performers, CEOs, retired athletes, former Olympians, but we specifically focused on people that were maybe past their prime. We felt that those people had a lot of wisdom and knowledge to share with others, and a lot of we also had a lot of military individuals in our group, and so with that momentum that we were gaining and kind of building a bigger group, we decided to compete in Race Across America, which is a cycling event.
Mm.
So cycling was new to me, but I got picked to be the crew chief and was in charge of our team of 8 cyclists, both male and female. Um,
So you hadn't cycled before, but then you're the crew chief?
no, I had not cycled before, but once again, I was in charge of the 8 cyclists, and I was part of the support crew. So that was another interesting thing, was being on the support side. Normally I was so used to being the athlete,
Mm,
um, and so this time I was like role reverse, supporting my
okay.
crewmates. And I had to basically, like, I was tasked with figuring out how to get our crew, our support crew, and these 8 riders across the country, all 3,070 miles from Oceanside, California to Annapolis, Maryland, um, for this race. It was a designated race. We were competing against other teams, and how to do it safely and as fast as possible. So we had a tour bus that slept 12, and then we had 3 other vehicles. And so it was like a game of chess of trying to figure out how to get everyone continually to move forward throughout this process. Um, it was It was so hard. It was great. I mean, our team was amazing. We had a mixed group of civilians and military, both active duty and retired. We had some retired NFL football player. We had a Paralympic hopeful. We had a retired Master Chief of the Navy SEALs on our team. We had a former gold medal Olympian. We had like this mixed bag of individuals, and we all came together. We had met. Half of us had met at a training camp in February, and then the next time we all met collectively as a team was a few days before the race.
Which was when?
And
Like,
was in June of
ooh.
2021.
So did you guys have like a agreed upon training curriculum between
Yeah, I mean, we kind
February
of
and
left it
June?
up to everyone to do the work, and I think all of these people are such type A and high level performers that no one wanted to be the weakest link.
Sure, yeah.
And we already knew like we had a female Canadian pro cyclist on the team. She was kind of set the benchmark, and a lot of the guys didn't want to be shown up by her. So I think they trained a little harder. But she's amazing. Like she's tiny and she can just bring it every single time she gets on the bike. So it was so fun. We all like it was amazing the way the unity that we created and the chemistry just immediately. Like you put all of these people in such a high stress environment, and we were going 24/7 across the country. There were things going wrong, like our tour bus broke down 3 times. There was no complaining. Everyone just knew what to do. It
Mm.
was like, okay, the bus broke down, the new bus is coming, unpack, unload, keep going. It was like mission number one, and that was to help veterans and mental and especially in the mental health arena. So we had mission focus. We all wore dog tags for someone that we were remembering that got nominated by someone on our team because we had so many military members. We were not going to let anyone down. So, it was intimidating at times being a woman and leading this team of such high level individuals. I mean, there was a Master Chief of the Navy SEALs retired like on my team and in my vehicle most days. And never once was I made to feel less than anyone. They knew that I was in charge, and I was taking it as an opportunity to use those people as my mentors.
Mm.
And they were so great at it. Like, if I had a question, if I needed to bounce something against them, they had my support. If I had to make a call about something, I did it. And that was the end of the story. There was no like arguing or that was it. Our Paralympic hopeful, who was also the only active duty above the elbow amputee in the Army, Michael Smith, was harassed on his bike. He's African American. He was literally like almost like hit by a car by someone telling him you don't belong in our town. And
Really?
it was yeah, it happened twice in 24 hours
Wow.
in 2 different towns. So I had to make the decision like, Michael, this isn't really safe for you. I don't need something to happen to you. I don't need you to get hit by a car by people that are ignorant. So, we made the choice to like keep him, he didn't get to ride for a while until we could get out of some of these small towns.
Mm.
And that's what we had to do. I mean, it was unbelievable that these things can still happen today, and by someone who's such a hero.
Yeah.
They don't know him, they don't know what he's been through, and that he's riding his bike across the country with one arm. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah. Wow.
So with all that being said, like, that was just such an amazing thing that, like, looking back, I always thought, like, how am I doing this? Like, but you just do it. And I had such a respect from my team. They're all still friends. They're all like family to me. I mean, I can call any of them right now on the phone and we would have an hour-long conversation. Like, they are the best people in the world. I mean, I say they're all superhumans, and I mean that from my heart. Um, and then from there, I got invited, from some of the SEALs on our team to do the Navy SEAL swim across the Hudson River in August. and it was a swim from New Jersey to New York. It was a 3-mile swim. And along the way, you would swim to barges where you would do the 22 pull-ups and 100 push-ups. And it was
Mm.
all in honor of Extortion 17 and to remember 9/11 as
Well,
well. So it was the
how
anniversary.
many times did you have to stop at these barges?
Well, we did it at the start, then we did it, there was 2 barges, and then we did it again at the finish.
And you all had to do that many
Yes.
pull-ups and push-ups? So 20
Yes.
pull-ups, 100
22
push-ups.
pull-ups. Yeah. 100
Yeah.
push-ups, jump back in the water, swim another mile, swim to the next barge, do it again.
Uh,
Um,
yeah. Sorry. So go back. What was that benefit for? And then we'll get back to that because that's a dagger, man. Like, holy crap.
oh,
You know.
I mean, it was, honestly, like no one's counting, but still, you want to do it to the best of your ability. And I was one of 6 women that were there. So a little intimidating, but honestly, like everyone was amazing. Like we started off doing a flag run. Then there was parajumpers that came and like parachuted out of the sky. And then we all went and jumped into like literally climbed over the railing and jumped about 15 feet down into the water and just started swimming. And I like remember having this moment as I'm in the water and I look up and like I'm literally at the feet of the Statue of Liberty. And I'm like,
Uh,
this moment is surreal. Like I'm right here and there's no one on the planet that has this perspective that I do like right now at this moment. So and then kept swimming. I did get a little hypothermic about halfway through.
because this is
Uh
what time of year that you're doing that.
It was August, but we're in the water for a long time,
Hmm.
and no one wore wetsuits. So I'm a petite female, like I don't have a lot of body fat on me. So I took a little break in an ambulance to warm back up. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna finish this thing. I don't care. Like I went back out and finished the flag run. And then there was a memorial at the end where we did more of the push-ups and pull-ups, and then just had some very amazing words by it was organized by the GI Go organization, and we all placed a flag at the 9/11 memorial. It was just so touching and so well done, and such a moving moment. And um I can just sympathize, and I feel like I can relate, yet I can't relate, but to a lot of the struggles that veterans go through with this, having these mental health issues and not knowing how to cope with everything. I mean,
Hmm.
everything that I've seen in my life and not knowing how to deal with it. I can relate to those feelings, and also the loss of identity. Like, you go off to war or you go overseas, and you are this person and you're in charge of this platoon or you're in charge of these people, and you have a very important job, and then you come back and you're trying to adjust as a civilian, and no one knows what you've seen and no one knows what you've been through and no one knows the horrors that you've seen and the heartache, and they just want you to be, you're just the neighbor down the street, or you're just the guy that works in the cubicle next to you. They have no idea. And so, I will forever have a special place in my heart for veterans and for veteran mental health. I mean, there was someone on my Race Across America team who lost his brother, who took his own life
Hmm.
after being in the service. Another woman was a Gold Star wife. Her husband died in Extortion 17.
Hmm.
And now she's raising her son, without his dad. I mean, those people are the people that inspire me, like to keep going, and that they're still struggling. And so I will forever support those organizations. Anything I can do for veteran mental health is so important to me.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know if we talked about it yet, or maybe we have about 220. Like I've been volunteering with them. Dan Jarvis
No,
was on 2 podcast episodes before, but you have to check that out.
I
And
will.
offline, I'll have to talk to you more about what we're doing. But we're healing PTS, and it's amazing. You'll have to listen to the podcast. I won't bore everyone else with this whole thing right now because if they avid listener, they've just heard this whole thing for an hour and a half 2 weeks ago. But man, it's amazing. But you're right. Like we don't get it. but there's a lot of people just suffering in silence, very much alone in their own mind, very much not trying to show it,
Mhm.
and be, strong, resilient veteran. And it's not just the veterans, it's first responders. Like to your point earlier about your role in the medical community, like first responders are, in the hospitals, paramedics, police officers, so on, the list goes on, are exposed to traumas not only on a deployment, 6 months to a year, but for 20 years. Like their career is, ongoing exposures to trauma. And so, and it's unfortunate that not enough people understand what you say, not only about veterans, but also the first responder community, and really what, how it affects them, and the various stigmas that are even in the communities about, oh well, if you can't hack this job type of thing. But it's not that. Like, these are really serious events that affect us, that get tangled up in our, sympathetic systems, and there you go, there's PTS. So there's a lot of work to be done there. I am thankful, however, that it seems like we're starting to shed the right light on these things, than maybe has ever been in the past. So, lot more work to do, but, yeah, it's a,
And I've been fascinated with a lot of the newer treatments that are coming out to help with the PTS, whether that's like EMDR or, these ketamine infusions. Whether it's, I mean, I've heard of, I'm hearing more and more and more every day, and it's just fascinating to me
yeah,
that it's not just talking to a therapist about your problems anymore, and there's has to be more to treatment than just that.
yeah,
And so yeah, I'm always
yeah.
looking and always what's available.
Yeah, I'm up to doing like two to four vets and first responders and civilians a week now with 22-0. And I'll tell you, I mean, I I work with a Gulf War vet who was just like had been suffering for 30 years, and at the end of 2 hours, he was just like blown away, like where he was, and he didn't even need to talk about it. And that's why I fell in love with the 22-0 process, because they
Mhm,
don't need to talk about their traumas. And that, because that's, exposure therapies, in the book, The Body Keeps Score, all about trauma. I picked that up and
mhm,
learned a lot. Have you read that book, The Body Keeps
mhm.
Score?
No,
Really, yeah,
I'll have
really
to get that
insightful book
one.
about trauma and how prevalent childhood trauma is, and how not only with that known, how much trauma is out there. Anyways, um, you know, uh, yeah, I mean, exposure therapy, some of these therapies, and look, this, anyone listen, this is just me talking. I'm not a doctor. I'm just citing the book
Yeah.
for a minute, but it was talking about, really those therapies, exposure therapies, only have a really 15% success rate, in really exposure therapy was originally for like phobias, right? Expose, scared of
Mhm.
spiders. Well, let's expose you to spiders.
Yeah.
But exposure therapy for PTS, if you think about it, like you're exposing them to the trauma over and over and over again, like asking them to
Mhm.
relive it, retell it. And the thought is, well, the more you relive it and retell it, you'll just get numb to it. But if it's stuck in your amygdala and that sympathetic system, it's there. It needs to be cleared from that.
Yes.
So the 22-0 process, they don't need to talk about it. We go through a process that helps clear it from the sympathetic system, and just like that, they can sleep better. It's amazing. I mean,
That's
it's amazing.
fascinating.
So you'll have to check out that podcast. We go on it for
I will for
we go
sure.
about it for an hour or so on it. But yeah, well, I appreciate you doing that. And I appreciate you talking about it, because it is important. It is, we do need to recognize that not only the veterans, but like you said, the veteran spouses and families who, again, it's a tough experience to have your loved one deployed, or in the service in uh, a volatile time, let's say, where you don't know what could happen, right? It's just it's a tough life to live, and I get it. Like we want to serve as veterans and all that stuff, but it's not easy, to live at the mercy of the government and the politics and whatever the world's throwing at us, so to speak. So, but anyways, back to being a high performance lady. the, yeah. So what about, so what's your, I want to go back real quick to the team coming across America. How long did it take you guys to get across?
6.5 days.
Wow. So you talked a lot about like the fact that these guys were high performers, but what was
Mhm.
it about them and working together that made for their success, right? Like what was it about the team that allowed you guys to be successful? Like and because I'm not hearing that there was a lot of ego involved. I feel like there
I
was
was
like a
just
lot
gonna
of,
say there was no ego involved, and I think that was the success of the team.
yeah,
Like, ego checked at the door and, mission focused.
yeah.
Um, I had the way that I had divided the teams was into, like, a day shift and a night shift, and so I do feel like there was we both did things differently because it was like, this is what we need to do to get through our 12-hour shift. And I was on the day shift, and one thing that I loved that our group did every single day at the end of the day would we shower, and we had amazing people that cooked, had food ready for us. And then we would sit down and just have like a gratitude discussion, like,
Mm,
who did something today that made you happy, that helped you. And people just went out of their way to do nice things for each other. Like, you didn't have to fill up my water bottle, but you did it anyway. No one even asked you to do that. That's amazing. Like, it was just one small thing, but it made my day a little bit easier. And so every day, like, we would do that, and I think that made the experience so much more enjoyable. And then also at the end, before everyone like departed their separate ways, we all took a piece of paper, we wrote our names on it, and we passed it around, and people just wrote like one sentence about you on it, like one thing that they thought about you or that they admired about you. And I still have my paper today. I keep it right in my bathroom, so I look at it every day. But it's just like, it was just such a nice, like, wonderful thing to do, to remind yourself on those days that maybe you're not feeling so great about yourself, or that maybe you made a mistake, or you could have handled a situation better. You look back at that sheet and know that there's a whole team around you, people that see your true self, and they see the true value, they see who you are at your core, and to never forget that.
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome. And that's what I was hearing. I just wanted to kind of, for the rest of the class to hear, right? Like it's so
Yeah.
important to check the ego, man, and just, seek that win-win, like with humility, you know what I mean? Like, and that's it right there, right? You got a team event where you have, in order to be successful as a team, you have to check the ego and go for the win-win, and how can you help each other? And yeah, I love it. It's
I
awesome.
mean, if you wrote it down on paper, like, we should have failed. Like, you have all of these alpha males, all these high performer females. Like, there should have been, cat fights and, big chest out, like puffing, it should have never worked. And it was the complete opposite. And I don't think that situation could ever be recreated again. I
Mm.
just think it was like this magical team, that all of these there was a reason that all of these people were brought together to accomplish the mission. And it was just amazing. It really was.
Well, but to be honest with you, kind of like the way you described the folks that were on the team, I don't know if it's been your experience, but it seems like once you hit certain pinnacles of success, you realize what we just talked about, like the importance of shedding the ego, and approaching these things with humility. So kind of like the team you described, right? CEOs, Olympians, Paralympians, like, former NFL players, right? Like really like top performers. And I think like to really even hit that top performance mind or level, you've had
Mhm.
to learn that lesson, right? Like, and maybe that was just played out,
Yeah,
and you
right?
know what I mean? Like, um,
Yeah,
but so
no, I totally agree.
yeah, I think it's really awesome. The sounds like a great experience in both of those, and man, hats off to you for one, leading the charge in that, but two, man, I'm still a bit blown away. 3 mile swim with like all those pull ups and push ups along the way. It sounds awesome, but man, like, holy crap, that's a lot. That is a lot.
Well, they're doing it again this year, so I have not committed yet, but we'll see what
Would you
happens.
finish that one? Was it like where you're like, I'm never doing that again, or
Yeah, I don't think I've swam since.
it's funny doing those things, right? Because it's like you said about the marathon. I do it every year with the 4x4x48, which
Yeah.
is like you finish it and you're like, I'm never doing that again, and then a couple days go by, you heal up, and you're like, yeah, I think I could do it. Like you get a certain distance from the pain where you forget the pain, and
That's why I have 3 children. I've forgotten the pain a couple
right,
times.
yeah, there you go. So what's your routine like? What are the things that contribute most to your success in this area? What's your daily routine to kind of maintain, right? You're still a mother of 3, still doing all these things. Like, so what's that look like for you?
I am definitely an early riser. I've always been that way. I like my wake up early peace time, where it's quiet. I don't like being thrown into chaos right away. I need to I need my body to wake up. I need my mind to wake up. And so I always start the day with some kind of devotion, some kind of something inspirational. That I'll just listen to while I'm cleaning the kitchen, while I'm kind of multitasking, but it's always like something that I will like, this is what I need to focus on today. I like to, I won't even look at my phone. I don't want to even see anything. I need to, like I said, wake my mind up a little bit first. And then I get my kids up, get them off to school, which is always kind of this like chaotic hour. And then it's time for my training. So I do my running, I do my lifting. I catch up. I come home and I'm catching up on emails and getting things squared away with scheduling for my kids, and then it's like chaos starts again once they get home from school, and it's kind of that on repeat every day. Then we're going to activities. I do count on that time in the day where I'm by myself. They're all in school to focus on me. That's my time to invest back into myself and into my training. Um, so when I don't get that time, if they're off of school, I have to get creative. So maybe that means waking up a little bit earlier before they wake up. Maybe that means it's a treadmill workout, even though I try to not run on the treadmill as much as I can. Um, but it's and my kids understand, like, this is what mom does.
Mm.
It's just become such a habit around here that mom needs to get her exercise. And it's the same with my husband too. He, lives a pretty active life as well. But they see that in both of us. And I realized it one time when it was a morning and my kids were home from school, and I was just tired. Like, I was just kind of complaining. I'm like, I don't want to run today. Like, I just said it like that, kind of under my breath. And my 6-year-old daughter, she's like, Mom, if you don't run, you're not going to win races.
Mm.
And I said, you're right. If I don't run, I don't win races. So I guess I'm running now. So I always keep in the back of my mind that they're watching, that they're watching what you do, they're watching your habits, they see you, and so you are the example every single day. So you have to be cognizant of that, and try to be the best example you can to them. So yeah, so like I said, kids come home from school, it's chaos again, and we're running around and we're going to activities. My kids are, in the winter they do ski racing. In the summer we're doing tennis, we're doing lake activities. And water activities, and then it's kind of crash at the end of the day, and then we're on repeat.
What would you say to, the women out there who want to do more, but they just kind of still want to be successful as a mother and wife? Like, what's kind of your lessons learned type of advice to them about, you know, still being a high performer or still taking care of yourself while still being a successful mother and wife?
Absolutely. um, I made the decision that I needed to invest in myself. And I know a lot of moms out there, because I've felt this way, is that they need to take care of the kids, take care of the pets, take care of the husband, take care of the laundry. And all the excuses add up and add up. And then before, before the day is done, there's nothing left for them, for themselves. And so I made the conscious decision that I'm going to invest in myself and in my health, and that will benefit not only myself, but it'll benefit my family in the long run, because I'm doing something that will improve my health in the long run. And I'm also teaching, like I said just earlier, like I'm teaching my children good habits of what it means to work hard at something every single day. And when you work hard, you see results. When they come, they come to one of my races, and if I win, they're like, Mom got a medal, but they saw Mom working really hard for months leading up to that. And so, I think for other moms out there, there's always a way to do it. And you just can't let your excuses get in the way, whether that means you're waking up earlier than everyone else, whether that means, you're doing weightlifting exercises holding your baby. I've been there. You're holding them while you're doing your squats. You're doing a plank and you're looking straight down at them. Like you can find a way to do it. You have the mom jogger out there. There's different ways to do it. And there's going to be different seasons in your life. Your kids are going to continually change. Their needs are going to change. You have to continue to adapt your training programs for when they're in school, when they're on summer vacation, when you are on vacation. I'm one of those people that exercises while I'm on vacation. I think it's fun. Most people probably think otherwise, but I like exploring new places, going for a run in a new city. It's exciting to me. It kind of mixes up my training a little bit. But you have to keep reinventing yourself. You need to keep figuring out ways that you can invest in yourself every single day, because you will be a happier person mentally. You'll be a happier person physically. You need to be a strong person so you can be strong for your family.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, being a mother and wife, it's the role of a high performer. So, just like, just like that entrepreneur, just like that CEO, just like that athlete, right? You still got to put in the work to be able to, be at the level you need to be at, and so how do you, for example, because I know one of the things that's going to be said to counter, like, I just don't have the energy. How can I do that and do all this? Like, so how do you recharge, or what are the important facets of your routine, let's say, that like keep the energy up, or how do you recover?
Well, one thing my husband will say is that I am the most disciplined person he's ever met. Like I am very disciplined when it comes to doing exercise. I'm very disciplined when it comes to diet. I just am, like, I know what works for me. And so I continually do that every single day. It's not the same workout every day, or it's not the same routine, but it's something. And so I know how my body feels and reacts to that. But to relax, I mean, spending time with my kids is my recharge. We travel, and travel is one of those ways too, where I can kind of reset mentally. Being outside is my number one reset. Like being in nature, being in, we live by a lot of lakes, like going to a lake, doing something outside for sure, just kind of resets everything for me. And then I feel recharged and ready to go. One thing I do need to continue to work on is sleep. Like, I think I've been forever like ruined since working crazy hours in the hospital, working night shifts, and then having, small children and not sleeping through the night there. Like, I've never developed really healthy sleep patterns. So that is something that I continually work on daily.
So you're saying like you don't get good sleep through the night now type of thing?
I don't get a lot of sleep. I don't get enough sleep. I'm like a 5 to 6 hours a night kind of person. Not ideal.
Yeah. Well, our mutual friend Jeff will tell you. He always says it, and like sleep is his number one, like as far as his priority list. And he'll tell you like sleep is God's medicine. Like he'll tell you real quick, like you got to be getting sleep.
No, I know, and I've listened to other podcasts about the importance of sleep, and it was, like, scary. I'm like, "Okay, I'll sleep more, I'll sleep more." And then it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah. But, definitely eating right is great for recovery, eating healthy foods. I love getting a good massage every once in a while. I wish it would happen more often. But just making yourself a priority.
Yeah, no, and that's it, right? Because you made a good point earlier about just, as a mom, you want to take care of everyone else first, but you don't want to be in that habit of leaving no runway left for yourself, or having that time for yourself accounted for, which you're 100%. So what's exciting that you're working on now?
Well, I've made the decision as of very recently that I want to give back to my running community, and I decided to pursue a running coach certification and just launched front runner coaching. So that's super exciting for me because speaking of these women that are looking for ways to find time for themselves and to invest in themselves. And I want to be there with them to help them find ways that they can achieve these goals. I want them to be a front runner in life. In their household, in all that they do. And so it's not just going to be a running platform, but also, we're going to be talking a lot about mindset and nutrition because it's a lifestyle change, and you need to do this for your family, and it's important for everyone. So I'm very excited for this. Like, I just feel like this is my calling. I've achieved so much already, and now it's time to give back to others so that they can achieve their goals as well.
Yeah, I love it, and congrats on that. I mean, and
Yes.
and you'll be there to be the example, right? Like kind of like that no excuse example of, hey, yeah, I hear you. I got three kids too,
Yep.
and I'm still, so I love it, because they're not going to believe the message if they don't believe the messenger, so to speak, So
Absolutely.
yeah, so
And I'm
awesome.
not, it's not going to be tailored so that everyone can go out and run Boston marathons every single time. It's so that you can go run your first 5K.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You can go from the couch to the 5K. And then from there, we'll continue to move on. But it's about goal setting, and it's about overcoming your fears, whatever that may be.
Mm.
It's about having a positive body image. That's something that I've struggled with for a long time. I always thought I was too skinny, or then I got to be too muscular. I got too this, too that. There's so much of that out there. And I wish that women could get past it and just embrace what their body looks like
Mm.
for what it is. And we've been through battles. Like, having children is so hard on your body. My
Mm.
body is forever changed from that, but it is what it is, and I will embrace it. I will embrace my legs for the way that they are. Like, I wanted skinny, toothpick legs when I was, in my 20s, and now I'm like, I couldn't do what I do without the strong muscular legs that I have, and I'm just going to own that one. And so I want women to have a positive body image. I want them to choose strong every day. I want them to feel confident in who they are and see their beauty both inside and outside. And I want them to be leaders, and just be a leader and feel like they could be a strong, confident female and just own that.
So that all said, I guess a quick message to the husband, or other male partners out there to these women, like, what would you say to them to, be the right support partner on that journey for a woman?
Yeah, this is something that I think my husband has had to adjust to, as this, kind of my own evolution has happened over the past couple years. I went from, being, this kind of mom of these babies that didn't know what end was up, and I'm just trying to get through the day, to now I'm this, very strong, confident female. And he's like, "Whoa, wait a second, like." I have to adjust my expectations here a little bit. And so I think what we have discussed and come to realize is that, just supporting me in what I'm doing and having open lines of communication is so important. I couldn't say enough about it. And just, like last year, for example, when I'm doing all of these crazy events and I'm like, babe, just know, just support me this year. Like, this is going to sound crazy, insane, but just please, like, support me in what I'm doing, because I've sacrificed a lot for our family over the past couple years, and now this is my time to shine and my year. So please. And he was full for it.
Mm.
He brought his kids out to California when we were leaving for the race, for the bike race. He came out to New York and he was just there. And that's all I needed, was him to be there. I didn't need coaching. I didn't need anything. I'm like, I got this. I just need your support. So that
Yeah.
was the big thing.
Yeah, it's a partnership. Like, you got to remember, it's a partnership. Like, nobody's
It's
working
so
for
much give
nobody.
and
It's a
take, right?
partnership, right? Yeah, yeah. Like, we've got yeah, that's it. We've got our gives and takes. You've got the things that the wives do better than the husbands, and or how we contribute respectively to the partnership, right? And that's it. I always talk a lot about that. I'm just not a fan of, like, some of these relationships you see where, like, someone's in charge in the wrong kind of way, like,
Like someone
it,
wears the pants in the family.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. So the things you hit on, right? I believe and have lived to experience as well. Like, it's all about the communication and being in partnership. For, again, back to the win-win, right? It's not all about him, and vice versa. Like, it's a partnership and it's a family, and it's a
You know,
bigger goal than just the individual goals.
I think it's really interesting when we'll be meeting people like for the first time, and maybe it's just another man, and like I don't even I get a name introduction, and they'll ask, like, well, my husband, like, well, what do you do for a living? And then no one asks me what I do. And in a way, I'm like, okay, well, maybe you don't want to know, but maybe, I just, it's offensive, but it's also laughable at the same time. It's like, I'm more, and that's getting back to the whole stay-at-mom thing. Like, I'm so much more than just a stay-at-home mom. And that job is so hard. Like, you have no idea. But I'm more than that.
Yeah.
FYI.
Well, yeah, you can be a high performer in that high demanding role, whether it's a mom or there's other things we talked about, and you can still do hard things, like, just like there's other folks in those other roles. There's still room to work on yourself, man. So I love it. I mean, I think it's great, and all the success in the world to you in your new venture. How can people find you and connect with you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I am on Instagram at Kris.Bachman. And then also you can find my new website at frontrunnercoaching.com.
Awesome. Well, hey, it's been an honor to have you on, Kris, and I
Me
appreciate
too.
you coming on and sharing your story. And I'm sure it'll serve some folks out there. And thanks for coming on.
All right, great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Indeed. Thank you.